really like the Peterson because, I mean, everything stays in tune. As soon as I hit the 5th string, the A, I can see it just responds automatically. And as soon as I go with the others, I put the other strings in tune, it goes perfectly. It goes perfectly in tune.
And of course, building finely crafted classical guitars like you do, everything has to be perfect. Tuning as well.
Absolutely, and ever since I started using Peterson, one of the first things that got me into Peterson was looking at the intonation. Mm-hmm. My father was really well known for the intonation of his instruments, but I really wanted to research and really find out how he did it, how he could get this. And I have to say, Peterson, ever since I started using Peterson, my first unit was a VSAM, and I started studying the intonation of our instruments. And I've known that, especially in the classical world, there has been a lot of articles have been written about intonation, and I found that the best tuners for using especially on classical guitars, has always been Peterson.
And checking intonation?
And checking the intonation, making sure that each fret, each note, it's acceptable for a Vela. For a Velasquez guitar.
That's great.
Excellent.
I mean, I use. Not gonna mention any other.
Another brand.
Another brand, but they were very accurate, but it was a hit and miss. With the VSAM and the VSAM 2, and I use now the iPhone app.
Peterson app.
The iPhone Peterson app, the iPad Peterson app, and also the little struggle clip, and it is always right on. It's always right on. Back and sides is actually oil varnish.
Okay.
And then the soundboard here, this is actually French polish.
Okay.
And the reason we prefer usually oil varnish for the back and sides, it's a little bit tougher. And a lot of the players, when they sweat, or either it's a little bit more scratch resistant. Mm-hmm. It still gets scratched, but it's a little bit better protection. And then it's gonna, with age, it's gonna crystallize more. It's gonna be like very hard. Mm-hmm. And then the soundboard, the French polish, it's so thin compared to the varnish. And varnish affects the soundboard. While the French polish, you can put on as many, almost like 20 or 30 coats, and it's going to be so thin, it's going to be the equivalent of one coat of varnish. Wow. This usually takes me, I like to build two guitars at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I try to build about, it takes me about 2 to 3 months on two guitars.
At the same time? At
the same time. Mm-hmm. I would prepare everything.
Yeah.
Ready to assemble, so that way I can, while one is drying, while I glue it, and the other one is drying, I can be working on the other one. Mm-hmm. These are ebony pegs, but this is by Stuart McDonald's. They're the Waverly's Urban Sloan tuners. We've used them for a long time. Yeah. And they're very elegant, and they're really one of the best machine heads made here. And then you have the ebony fingerboard, and this one is just a little scrap piece of Brazilian rosewood.
The overlay.
The overlay
on the headstock. Yep.
So I managed to find it, from the scraps of my father. So, and then you have the mahogany neck.
Yep.
The blank for the neck would be like this. And then these two will get either glued together like this, or usually we like to go
With the grain.
With the grain, and then sometimes one of the characteristics that my father has been known for is he likes preferably to join two pieces together, book match, and it's basically to get the book match, but also accidentally he gets a V out of it. He always tells people that it's a V on his
the neck profile, you mean?
On the heel right
here.
Oh,
okay, yeah.
You see, V for Velasquez.
Of course.
And then soundboards. I'll show you how we start the soundboards here. What we do is we select. First, he will try out both by tapping. And then and then looking at the grain, how the grain is going to lay out before he actually starts cutting it and pre-shaping it. And the rosette is handmade. This is our particular rosette. My father has used this for over 70 years for his guitars, and it's his signature rosette. This one, he calls it the Santos Hernandez because he actually went to Spain and met the widow of Hernandez and went to his workshop, and he went to Spain. Before that, he went to Alhambra, the castle of Alhambra, and this design was the mosaic design from the doorways was laid out, and he drew it and he said, okay, this is gonna be my pattern. And then once he visits the workshop, the lady gives him, oh, let me show you a book of all the rosettes that my husband has made. And she brought this book of all the drawings, and right there, the first page was the same drawing, and he's like, okay, I've been bitten to it. And then here, that's the soundboard here.
Yeah, you can hear it.
And then, of course, we don't listen to a particular note by chance. What we listen is more the reaction of the tapping, and then if it's a higher pitch, then depending on the flexibility too, like this one, then we will decide how
much more wood to take
how
out?
much more wood to take out, how to calibrate the soundboard before it's even braced altogether. A lot of guitar makers do this by hand. They bend this with
an iron,
with what they call an iron, either electrically. It's heated electrically or gas with a gas, and they have to learn how to bend it. And luckily, since I grew into it, my father already designed a form. That thing is older than I am. That thing it's about 60 years old, and that's my best friend. Because bending sides is difficult, but not only difficult because you have to maintain a uniformity, and we can bend there's a lot of jigs that do it, and they do it one at a time. But this one we can do two at a time, and we can maintain the uniformity.
Oh, gotcha.
So they're exactly the same shape.
Now, are the sides, is it laminated, are they layered, or is it just one?
It's thickness to close to 2 millimeters.
Okay.
Between 2.5, depending on the wood, and then it's wetted, it's soaked in water, and then as soon as it's soaked, after maybe an hour or two, we actually heat up the bending jig, and then we use the heat to actually put it into shape. And then after we basically leave it in the jig for about a few minutes, maybe 15, no more than 15 minutes, depending on the heat. Let it cool down. As soon as it cools down, we take the sides off the jig, and they're already form, and they stay in shape just like this. You see, I'm not gonna be so shy about showing this because, I mean, the Taurus bracing has been copied so many times. And then this is the form. This is what they call tablero in Spanish. And the tablero, this is the more traditional approach. We start with the soundboard, position it. The soundboard gets aligned with the neck. Once the neck is aligned, then the sides are installed, and then everything just starts going into it piece by piece. The bracing, it's already, before the actual soundboard is fitted in here, it's actually glued on beforehand. So, and then after this, everything gets glued on, and then the back will get jointed and braced, and then it gets fitted on here, and then it's closed. And then after that, once it's closed, we trim everything to size, make the groups for the purfling, carve the neck, install the fingerboard, and the rest is history. The bracing, especially for the soundboard, we prefer European spruce. Everything is European spruce. The kerfing here, this is mahogany to match the hardwoods. And then the little blocks, that's also spruce to maintain. This is spruce. The heel block, actually the tail block, I'm sorry, tail block, you can make it either spruce or Spanish cedar or even mahogany.
Right.
And then, but you have to watch the weight. We usually watch the weight and the thickness to keep it consistent. And pretty much you want the guitar, once it's finished, to have almost like a certain standard, almost like a certain weight, not too, if it's not too heavy, not too light, because you want it to react a certain way. So it's fun. I love it because, you know, once it is a lot of work, but at the end, you know, once you string it up,
it comes alive.
It comes alive, and of course you're doing it for somebody else, you know, somebody who's going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I call them my girls.
He does.